notice that you are currently in a listen only mode, and you can, I see that someone's raising their hand. You can use the Zoom Q&A button. It is present at the bottom of your console, and uh, if there's any questions, just feel free to interrupt us, and we'll take care of that during the session. And we have a demo and another article that links to today's webinar. So I'll be putting the resources to everything in the chat. So in case you want to have a, a real-time experience, and maybe you want to follow along with the speaker, that's Akmal. One second. I think Akmal is not named correctly. Akmal, can you please rename yourself? Actually, that's my name. Seems to be a glitch there.
I may have been sent. Yes, I think what it is, I've been sent your meeting invite, so I've
It's
become you.
fine. I actually, one second. Let me rename you
Yeah,
myself. Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. Okay, so I'm Yukti. I'm the host for this webinar today. One of my main jobs here at SingleStore is to organize these webinars end to end. And Akmal is a very regular speaker here at our webinars. Thanks, Akmal. And he's been an immense help. And he's been in the database space for like some time and has very rich experience, and uh, he can share his experience with all of us through these free webinars. So thanks, Akmal, for putting in the effort and the energy to do all these things for us. We really appreciate it. So the resources are all available with me. I'll be putting it in the chat again. Akmal, can you please go to the next slide? If you like this topic today, we actually have amazing topics that are coming up in the following weeks. So on 23rd April, we have building trust in AI analytics, real-time meets data governance. So this is actually a partner webinar with Colibra. So we have a guest speaker from that company. They're joining us. So it would be, if this topic is interesting, feel free to, scan the QR code. It will directly take you to the landing page. April 25th, we have a webinar on DeepSeek, the new frontier in open source AI models. I think, Akmal, you are the speaker on this one, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so Akmal is here. So if you like today's session, feel free to join in on this session as well. And on May 21st, we have another partner webinar with building real-time data pipelines using S-Cherry and SingleStore. This is all interesting to you. Feel free to sign up. Even if you don't have the time to attend, just you can click on auto register or maybe sign up. We will email you all the relevant resources and the recording after the session. So just feel free to check it out. And Akmal, can you go to the next slide? This is the sign up page. Like this, if you scan this QR code, it will directly take you to the sign up page. I think we are giving away free $600 worth of credit. So Akmal can talk about it a bit more. I think it's very relevant to today's session. So feel free to check that out. And it's very easy to sign up, and Akmal will walk you through everything. So we really recommend doing it, during the session hands-on, because that way, if there's any doubt, you can stop us at any time and we can address it. So I think I've spoken a lot now. I'll go dark now. Akmal, please take it away. And thanks again for joining. If there's any question that's there, use the Q&A button. I'll try to take care of it. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much, Yukti. And thank you all very much for joining. Yukti, one small favor. Can you just fix my surname? Sorry, being an academic, I tend to
Oh
notice
my goodness.
detail.
I
No, no,
actually,
it's okay. Small
I,
change. I mean,
oh my God.
you're from South Asia,
My
right? You
God.
know how many different ways it's spelled.
I know, it's all right. I
All
know.
right,
There's
thank
actually
you.
there's a lot of spellings
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
associated with your surname.
It's
So
okay.
initially I was also very confused. So
No, no, don't
it's
worry.
fine. I'm really sorry for
No,
it.
no, no worries. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. All right, that's great. Let's power on then, okay? All right. So in today's session then, we'll talk obviously about the title of the webinar, which is really focusing around Mongo and CDC, okay? And SingleStore has a product called SingleStore Kai as well, which provides MongoDB API compatibility. Very useful. SingleStore has had JSON support for some time, okay? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Now, in terms of sign up, so I'll see if I can do this, okay? Because I'm already logged in, but singlestore.com / cloud hyphen trial. It used to be. I will try that. And there we go. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Let's just see if that works. Yes. So that for me, because I'm already signed in, it's already gone back to my sign in page. But I think if you just do that, or the link that Yukti will happily share in the chat. You guys just go there, okay, and sign up. Literally, it will take you just a couple of minutes, okay? It just asks for your username, email address, and just walks you through the steps, okay? Now, and I think you receive an email as well just to check that you are human, all right? So that's very useful. And then once you've signed in, it'll look something like this, okay? So you'll see that on the left nav, you've got a bunch of controls. Oops, pardon me. I'm just trying to be too clever there. It's it on the left-hand side. Okay, there's this kind of navigation pane. Uh, and you'll see that there's a couple of deployments here. Okay, so Yukti mentioned the $600 worth of credits. There is a free shared tier as well, but today the features I'm going to use in terms of the CDC capability requires the standard tier. Okay, so that currently, as far as I'm aware, doesn't work on the free shared tier. Okay, so what you'll see is as you sign in, there will be something like this. Okay, you'll see your free shared tier. There will be a workspace for you and a database automatically created. Okay, so that's great to get going straight away, hit the ground running kind of thing. However, at the top here, okay, this little triangle, if you pull this down, you can see that you've got some other options. And one of these is new deployment. And actually, I've clicked on that and I have deployed myself this thing here, workspace group, group one. I'm currently running on US East 1, North Virginia, active workspace. So essentially, what you can do here with this new deployment, you get the option to provision yourself some additional resources, this standard tier. So you can see that my free shared tier is ghosted out because you're only allowed one, and I'm already running one. But the standard tier, okay, and you can choose your workspace group name. You can just take the default there. Your cloud provider, I'm going to be using AWS today, but if you wish, you can run on GCP and Microsoft Azure as well. Choose your region. Perhaps it's a good idea to choose something physically closer for yourselves. So in my case, let's have a look. I would be Europe West to London. And then all you need to do, leave the rest of these unchecked. Okay, that'll be fine. And just do next at the bottom here. Okay. And once you do this, you'll see that you can choose your workspace name. Again, you're welcome to take the default. And then here, size is the thing that allows you to configure how, in terms of the resources, how many virtual CPUs, how much memory. And I'm currently using S00, which is the smallest one. Okay, so that comes with two virtual CPUs, 16 gigabytes of memory, and that will burn through 0.28 credits per hour. Tiny amount, okay? So you can leave this running for a while if you wish, and that's fine, okay? And then if you wish, enable SingleStore Kai here as well. That's always helpful if you plan to do some MongoDB work. And then just click this button at the bottom here. Now, I've already got this running, okay? So remember, this is provisioning some resources for you in the cloud. So it does take a couple of minutes before it's up and running. So, be patient. Okay, let's go back, okay? And I can show you here. Here's mine. Okay, this one. So I've currently got this standard workspace here, and you can see there I've been busy. This is the AdTech database that I created a little bit earlier, just for the purposes of today, and that's all we need for now. Okay, so we'll come back to this in a few moments. All right. So you're welcome to provision that. Say, just create the account, sign in, choose at the top there. Okay, under deployments, and get yourself a new deployment. Okay, choose S00, select single stock I, and it takes a couple of minutes to provision. Okay, and once that's done, we'll come back to this in a few moments. All right, and don't worry too much if you didn't get those steps. As Yuki mentioned, there will be a recording which you can review later. All right, let's move on then. Okay, Briefly, then, there's two standard slides that we like to show about SingleStore. So, as a company, we've actually been around for quite some time, and these are some of the milestones over the years. Over 100 million in annual recurring revenue, over 400 global customers. I think that's something around about 450 now, something like that. I think nearly that sort of number. So it's growing all the time. And along the bottom there, you can see the investors. So many well-known names there. Goldman Sachs, Khosla Ventures, IBM, and so on. Okay, so there are well-known global brands that are investors in the company as well. So briefly then, at its heart, what SingleStore is a database management system, but we are shifting focus as well because it provides many AI capabilities as well. So it's a kind of an AI platform. Think of it that way too. But currently, in terms of universal storage, it has the ability to work with both OLAP and OLTP. Okay, so it originally started life in OLTP in memory processing. Company used to be called MemSQL, product as well, same name. Uh, Subsequently added support for analytics. Now, in that case, it doesn't make sense to call yourself or your product MemSQL anymore because now you're doing analytics, hence the name SingleStore. So this is the concept of universal storage, okay? The ability to handle both of these types of data. So we have the ability to work with a variety of external technologies, streaming data, okay? And we're going to look at an example today of that. So Kafka, for example, if you want to work with Apache Spark, we've used that in many previous webinars. You can load data from many external sources as well, S3 buckets, Hadoop, HDFS, and so on. And the animation here is showing this concept of pipelines. So you can ingest vast quantities of data in parallel at scale from these external sources into SingleStore and be able to run both analytics and do online transaction processing. So we do work with the major cloud providers in the Western world. Okay, so today I'm going to be using AWS. Can run on-prem. Some customers do that for various reasons. I think legal and other reasons they are required because they're not permitted to use the cloud. So that's fine too. And SingleStore store data types. Okay, so at its heart, it started life is relational but does geospatial as well. Full text search. Yuki and I did a webinar in December covering the latest developments in the latest release of the full text search. Interestingly, a couple of customers also using it for key value. A little bit unusual there, but you can do that. JSON, okay, which is really a little bit of our focus today. Time series, which is one of my favorites, simply because of the demos that I like to build around that. Vectors as well. All right. So the important thing about vectors is that vector support has been in the product for a number of years, since 2017, actually. So it's not something that was just added recently, but it is very important, as you know, especially if you're working with generative AI, if you are working with embeddings, retrieval, augmented generation, and so on. I mean, it serves as an extremely useful purpose for semantic search. And SingleStore supports a number of operations, Euclidean distance, and dot product, for example, to give you, in terms of finding closer answers when you were doing semantic search. Uh, Real-time decisions, AI apps, dynamic experiences, dashboards, ad hoc queries, machine learning. Okay, so wide range of elements. So this is kind of a nice high-level picture in terms of showing the central architecture, if you like, at a very high level and some of the technologies that we integrate and work well with. Okay, so JSON, very popular data format. Uh, Widely used in many verticals, many different domains. There's just some examples there. So financial data, for example, supply chain, social media streams, customer analytics, IoT. We talk a little bit about that today. Log and machine data, okay, telco CDR data. So over the years as well, in the not too distant sort of past, we have seen the emergence of these document-oriented databases as well as part of this whole kind of no SQL, no SQL movement, of which MongoDB is probably the market leader in that space, not just in sort of the document database space, but no SQL overall. Um, so lots of potential there in terms of use cases. The challenge, though, is generally when you're working with JSON and trying to do analytics, you may be facing some challenges. So great for transactional, okay, use cases, um, but trying to then get anything useful out of it in terms of analytics, you may go through a couple of steps of which ETL, for example, just flattening the data, ingesting it to some external sources, perhaps something like Snowflake, for example, or Elastic. This logo should be a little bit familiar to some of you as well, Rockset. So acquired by OpenAI last year in order to get to do analytics on this. So a little bit challenging. So increased data transformation. So you can see there's a number of steps now that we have to go through in order to get anything useful out of it. That increases latency. It's brittle, can be costly as well because you're having to use a variety of technologies now. I know all of these technologies um, cost money, license, resources, time, effort, and so on. Massive effort to update, change the queries. Okay, and so if you want to work backwards as well, it becomes a challenge too. Okay, so there's some practical problems with this approach. Okay, that we try to solve with SingleStore. And so one of the things that you can do is that particularly if you're working with MongoDB and you are using it heavily for transaction-oriented data, is this concept of augmentation. So in this case, you keep your investment in Mongo because you've spent money in terms of skills, tools, you are paying them for the privilege of using their product. And for those type of applications, it's fine. But then you can use something like SingleStore, for example, to perform the analytics using this CDC replicate mechanism, which I'll show you today. Okay. So SingleStore, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, has this concept of pipelines, which has been, around for some time. This capability has been extended to provide this type of use case now as well, in terms of taking data from a source such as Mongo, being able to replicate that into SingleStore and keeping that link live. So as long as that link is up and running, any changes or new data that arrives on the Mongo side will get propagated into SingleStore as well. Okay, so that works well. And using SingleStore for analytics. Okay, so that's a very useful use case in terms of if you don't have the opportunity to perhaps replace Mongo completely, you want to continue using it for various reasons, both business and commercial and so on. That's absolutely fine. Keep your investment, as I said before, but you augment it with SingleStore. And the second major use case then is to do the entire replacement of Mongo using SingleStore Kai, okay, which is the MongoDB API compatible product. And in case you're wondering what is the degree of compatibility between Kai and MongoDB, actually it's very high. I think it's over 92%, something of that order. And it's improving all the time. Okay, and again, we have customers that have moved from Mongo directly into SingleStore using Kai. So in that case, then, essentially what you've done then is you've replaced completely MongoDB, both for the operational side in terms of OLTP and using SingleStore as the analytical engine as well. Okay, so one product is handling both of these. Okay. Now, performance benchmarks are always useful. I have to tell you a little story here. So when I was an academic many years ago, at that time, the hot technology of the day was something called object-oriented databases. It's kind of faded away now. Okay, one or two of the vendors still exist to some degree, but it was for its time, the in quotes, the next big thing. Okay, so I was going to replace relational. It didn't happen, of course, but I spent about 6 years of my life in academia doing performance benchmarks on that, trying to work with customers doing benchmarks, and it is a very difficult challenge, very difficult task. Because when you are doing these performance benchmarks, it is important in terms of apples for apples type comparisons as far as possible. And sometimes that's not, always 100% possible. You have to make some decisions in terms of how you do this. But anyway, these two particular examples. So an IoT one, okay, which is sort of fairly medium size in terms of scale, and then this kind of public analytics benchmark, which is on a much larger scale. And I have to tell you that the code for both of these, and they are publicly available on GitHub. I did try the IoT one for myself simply because I wanted to test SingleStore against Mongo just to verify the results. I had to stop. Unfortunately, MongoDB Atlas was the bill was getting rather large. I had to cut it short, stop before it got too high. But essentially, with the IoT, think of like a global sensor array. Okay, you've got a series of devices that are located. Could be on land, could be in the ocean. Okay, and then we are measuring certain things. For example, we could be measuring air temperature or pressure. Um, there could be some unique characteristics of the sensor, based on whether it's on the land or in the ocean as well. There's things that could be peculiar to the sensor as part of that. And so these sensors are collecting data, sending it in real time. And so you've got a set of queries that are representative of this. What's the most recent event, for example, sent by a device? Uh, which 5 devices have sent the most events? What's the latest status report for each version 2 of a device? Okay, so you could have multiple versions of devices. What devices have not sent an event in the last hour? Okay, that might be a little bit suspicious. Perhaps some devices need attention because we're not receiving data from them, and so on. Okay, so you get the gist of this. So these are meant to be representative of the kind of queries that we would want to run. There's a good mixture there. Okay, and none of this is specific to Mongo. Neither is it specific to SingleStore. They are just general queries that we could run, and we simply wanted to test, what was the performance of MongoDB versus SingleStore. So again, the little caveat that I mentioned a few moments ago in terms of trying to do an apples for apples comparison, well, this is about as close as we could get. So number of CPUs here for Mongo was 16, okay, and similar number for SingleStore. So this time we're using an S2, okay. S00 we looked at a few moments ago. In terms of memory, it was 122 gigabytes on the Mongo side, and for this S2 we get 128 gigabytes. The hourly cost when these tests were run for Mongo was $9.14, and SingleStore was $6.40. Okay, so about a third cheaper there. Let's give you the environment in terms of the tests. And here is the overall for all of these 6 queries. I know you probably have to squint a little bit to look at the results. There is an associated blog post for this as well, so you can see that. But essentially, with Mongo, you've got the vast majority of queries kind of tailing off like this. Okay, they are, it's getting more and more expensive over time in terms of the time period required to respond. There you go. Okay. There's this kind of strange hockey stick effect where actually the query towards the end, curls back. So at some point it is coming back and performance is improving, but right at the tail end, but not enough. And then overall, how did SingleStore do? Well, it did a lot better. I mean, it's literally there. It's flat in all of these cases. You can see, vast improvement in performance for all of these queries representing sort of an IoT type problem. And then here you can see the difference. So in some cases, I think the most extreme example is query 1, where it's getting on to be 900x faster for that particular query. So overall, look, this is the query legend. Lower is better. So we did well there. What about the public analytics benchmark? So this is ClickBench, okay? So if you check the ClickHouse GitHub repo, you can have a look at the benchmark. You can try and run it yourselves as well if you wish. So again, taking a look at this, I know again it's a little bit difficult to see, but essentially we've got most of the Mongo results scattered in this box here, and there's a wide range of results. Single store, here we go. It's I think with perhaps one or two exceptions, you can see, okay, that did really well. And in terms of the price performance ratio, single store is 7 times cheaper. Okay, so it took $24 to run single store and about $168 here for Mongo. Okay, so we did well there as well. Okay, so a couple of examples there. Now, at the end of the day, one of the lessons that I learned, certainly when I was doing my performance benchmarking, is that the best benchmark is the user's application. Okay, so these are representative in terms of publicly available tests that you can run. However, do run your own tests, evaluate for yourselves, and determine if the single store is going to be a good fit for you. Okay, now let's take a look at the integration of the CDC, and let me show you an example of how we could utilize CDC, bring data across, and even some simple kind of analysis of the data, some visualizations, okay, which I'm going to do using Metabase. So Yukti will share the article with you, which I think is this one. Okay, so this is streaming data from MongoDB Atlas to SingleStore Kai using Kafka and CDC. And there is an associated GitHub repo. Okay, so there is a Jupyter notebook at Kafka cdc.ipynb, and there is a file with some SQL code as well. Okay, and the article itself contains 4 queries as well that we can run. And so the
Interrupt
means
you for a
that
second.
you load up. Oh, yes. So here's got a Mongo
Well,
cluster
can I
running.
please interrupt you for a second? I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. We have a question from George Williams. It seems a bit interesting. So they
Yeah.
say that how much SSD was configured for the benchmark machines, or does that not matter for either MongoDB or Kai in your test?
So sorry. Repeat that, please, Yukti.
How much SSD was configured for the benchmark machines, or does
Oh,
that not matter for either MongoDB or Kai in your tests?
I think it's NVM. There is a link to Jason's blog post that describes the technical detail. So I tell you what, after this event, I'll find the link to the blog post, and why don't you send it as part of the follow-up email, because it's got a far more information than I have shown here today, and that will be very useful because that will be available to everyone then, and you'll be able to see the exact setup and configuration as well. Okay. So that might be the best option. So that's a good question. So if we go back here, let's just check here. Okay, so that you can see, I think there is somewhere here. There may well be a hidden slide. Um, okay, so let's just have a look. I think it may not be in this particular deck. But for this scenario, it's Atlas M80 NVMe. Okay, and so, as I said before, the setup was as similar as it could be in terms of making it a fair comparison between the two systems. You don't want like solid state drives in one and rotating disk in the other one. That's not going to work. All right. That is not fair, and that's not playing by the rules. So, as far as possible, I mean, this is just showing a little bit, but there's not enough detail there. I appreciate that. But I can confirm that I know that as far as possible, the two environments were as similar as possible. You can see there's not quite the exact same. So the level of memory is slightly different, for example, but the virtual CPUs were the same. And in terms of the SSD configuration, I believe it was as similar as possible. But great question. Thank you very much for that. That's a very good point. And it's important that, when you are conducting these tests, if you do a kind of a like for like, apples for apples, as they say, it's important for both systems, okay? Not only for yourselves, but for the competitor's product that you're trying to test as well. Great question. Okay, so and Yukti will show you this. So all I will say is, if you want to run this along, by now your standard tier should have provisioned itself and should be up and running. And so there is a Jupyter notebook here. You just need to download that. Okay, and then from your left nav, okay, if you go to Data Studio here on the left hand side, okay, and then you'll see that you can see I've got a couple of tabs open, but essentially what you want to do is if you just go here where it says new and then select import from file as the option, that will allow you to upload that Jupyter notebook into this environment. Okay, and then you'll be able to run it. So I've already done that. And here is the notebook. Okay, let me just get rid of my arrow there. And the other thing to do is just check that you are running the correct standard tier here, okay? So in this case, you can see that actually it's currently pointing to my starter workspace, which actually is fine because this particular notebook, it's not doing anything locally within the SingleStore environment. We are just simply using this as a kind of a data loader. So that's absolutely fine. But in the general case, where you are actually creating databases, accessing tables, you want to check that this matches the environment that you want to access, okay? So one of the nice things here is that because these are Jupyter notebooks, and of course, I can connect to SingleStore and I can do stuff there. Equally, in this particular case, I am not connecting to SingleStore. So all I'm simply doing here is a little bit of a couple of libraries here. So PyMongo, Kafka, Python, okay. And then I'm just doing some imports here. Okay, from Kafka, import Kafka consumer, and from PyMongo, Mongo client. And then here, and yes, I know my admin and password are visible. I promise I will change those after this event. Don't worry too much. Essentially, we are just using a try kind of catch loop just to connect to this Mongo environment, which is running over here in the cloud. Okay, so this is Atlas. And I am just checking for this database called AdTech. Okay, if it exists, drop it. And then just tell me that you have connected successfully, all right? And in case there's any exceptions, just put a message out. So in this particular case, you can see that I ran this a little bit earlier today, 4:30 or so. I was able to connect successfully. So all you
Well,
need to
is
do
it
is,
okay if I interrupt you again?
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
So basically, there's a question from
Yes.
Chandan. They say that if the data set becomes massive and exceeds memory limits during aggregation, how would you mitigate that?
You need to do it in batches. Okay, so you need to think
Okay.
about uh, feeding the data in batches. Actually, I'm using batches just below here as well. Okay, so I'll show you that in just a moment. All right. So there's various strategies. For example, you can stage it, right? So you don't if you've got an awful lot of data, terabytes or petabytes of data, this approach is not going to work very well, right? You're going to blow up something along the way. So it's important to think about bulk loading. There are other mechanisms that are available. In this particular case, I'm just simply demonstrating that I want to get some data into Mongo. That's all we're doing here. And I'm using Kafka in order to do that, just for the purposes of the demo. So we got something in Mongo that we can use then to connect with the CDC, all right? So this, for example, yes, I'm running it in the SingleStore environment, but I'm doing so just to generate some data and get it into Mongo in the first place, okay? So if you see my reasoning there. So that's what we're doing here, okay? So you may have some other source. You may have like Confluent Cloud, for example, as your means of data that you are connecting into Mongo. Perhaps you've got a live feed, yeah, some streaming data that's arriving into your Mongo environment. That's absolutely fine. I'm not using that today, but this is a super simple way just to get some data in. And then here, what I'm using is this thing here, which is kafka.memcompute.com. Okay, so this is a public Kafka broker that SingleStore has. Usually it's running, sometimes it may not be. Okay, so we do try to keep that up and running. As it's got a couple of topics. There is one on add events specifically, which is what we're doing here. So we're just connecting to this broker. Okay, so as you can see, I ran this a little bit earlier today. So it's connected successfully. And then here you can see there is a loop. So I've set this to a very tiny number, 100 iterations, okay? Create 100 records from this Kafka feed into Mongo. All right, I can change that number. I could change it to 1,000, 10,000. I can make it much bigger, but obviously the larger the number, the longer it's going to take. And there is something that I wanted to show you. Okay, so I keep the number down. And you can see here that, again, I've batched it. And I've set a batch size of 10. So there'll be sort of 10 into 100, 10. So this will run 10 times, okay? Just to kind of help the flow a little bit, right? So again, think carefully about how you want to get the data in. And then if this is something that you're interested in, obviously you want to work with SingleStore, we'd be happy to help you, okay? And advise you on strategies, how to get massive quantities of data in. But this is just simply the purpose of getting a little bit of data into Mongo, okay? And I'm going to use this again as well. So here we've got the structure of the data, what it looks like. Okay, so these are ad tech events. We've got a user ID, we've got an event name, the advertiser, what's the campaign, and then what is the gender of the person, well, how much is their income, some specifics in terms of page URL, what region of the world they're in, or maybe in the United States, for example, particular state, and the country. Okay, and so we're just iterating this and going over, and you can see, I mean, this thing runs really fast. I mean, for 100 records, okay, it's tiny. I ran this a couple of times, okay, and again, I'll do this in momentarily, but what it's done is on the Mongo side here, it's created 200 records here, okay, which is enough just for the purposes. And again, I'll change this in a couple of minutes just so you can see we're going to do a little bit more, right? So essentially what we're doing here is this is kind of simulating a Kafka feed into MongoDB Atlas, right? Nothing to do with SingleStore here, okay? So I'm just generating some data, storing that into a collection and a database in Atlas. And then here, what I'm doing is I am creating the CDC, okay? So the CDC link here, and this is the syntax for it, okay? So what this will do is we just say create link, give the link a name, and then when this is of type MongoDB here, and we need to provide some configuration details. So we have to give it the details of the Mongo hosts, for example, the primary, the secondary, okay, here. What is the particular database and collection we're interested in? Okay, that we're going to use SSL. Uh, yes, I know using admin is bad here, but this is okay. It's a throwaway database. You'll do a better job, right? You promised me you'll do a better job, okay? Here's the MongoDB user, and there's their password, okay? So what this will do is this will set up the CDC. Eventually, it's like a pipeline, okay? But no data going through there. This is just instructing SingleStore to set this up for us. And then what we're asking it is the next step here is, okay, using this pipeline description, okay, create tables, okay, and infer the structure of what that table is going to be. And we are going to use Avro as the format to connect across to Atlas. And then once that's done, we can ask it, okay, show us the tables. Okay, so let me run this. Okay, and it tells me that there is a table here called events. Okay, so it's connected across, and then I could say here, okay, describe events. Tell me what this actually looks like. Show me the structure. And then here it tells me, and then you can see here that we've got underscore ID, which is of type BSON. We've got more type BSON, and then a little bit of internal stuff here used by SingleStore, this kind of long blob as well. Okay, that's fine. So essentially, it's interrogated Atlas It's looked at the collection, it's picked out the format, and on the single store side, it's created a table that matches that structure. Now, again, so far, no data is coming through. All we've done is we've described the, if you like, the pipeline. We've managed to get metadata, if you like, that we've kind of understood and managed to find the details of the collection on the Atlas side. And then we've got this, we can ask it, okay, you've done all of that. Show me what pipelines are currently running. Now, initially, when you do this, it will say, well, okay, here's the thing that I know about. In this case, it's running. Okay, initially, it will still be stopped. It's not scheduled. Okay, you can schedule these things as well. And then what I did here was start all pipelines. Okay, so that's the command I ran. Now, if I run this again, it will give me an error because it's running already. If you can see the point, right? So that's done. And then as soon as that's done, what it does, it takes a snapshot. So it will interrogate the collection, copy the records across, and you saw a few moments ago when we looked at Atlas 200, and we can certainly check that here. Okay, so we can do a select star, count star from events. And if we do that, it tells us there are 200 records there, which is correct. And because that link is still live, we haven't shut down the CDC pipeline. It's sitting there waiting. So if new data arrive on the Mongo side, those will get propagated into SingleStore. Okay. And then we could have a look at one of these records in the table as well. Show me what this actually looks like. And if we do that, and I apologize, it's kind of wrapped around a bit, but here's that kind of internal $OID. And then here you can see the structure. Sorry about that. My magnifier is not particularly good there, but it's giving me an advertiser, the company. So all the fields are there as key value in this kind of JSON structure. And that's been, just retrieving one record from there. So that's absolutely fine. All right. Now, at this point in time, let me just shrink this down and let me, what I need is this thing here, okay, which I think I need to log into. Hopefully you can still see this. So here, what I've done is this is Metabase. This is the free version, the open source version. This is running in a separate environment. It's running in a Linux virtual machine. And what I've simply done is set up the connection details from here to SingleStore. And so here I've set up some visualization. So you can see again, it recognizes currently that there are 200 records. And I've created a few charts here. So here's a pie chart, events by region. Okay. That's fine. And then I've got a few other things, events by top 5 advertisers, and then gender and income here as well, for example. And currently, this is because this is the open source free version. This thing here, it's refreshing the data every 1 minute. That's the smallest unit of time that this can be set to. I think you have greater control in the paid version than the enterprise version of this, but this is fine for this purpose. So currently you can see there's nothing there that's coming through. So if I switch back and let's create some more data. Okay, wrong window. Sorry, not this one. Thank you. You don't want to see my calendar, I think. Nothing interesting there. Let's have a look at the window. So let's take a look here. There we go. All right, so here, let me switch back to the Jupyter Notebook and let's make this bigger. All right, so we'll go down to the bottom here. All right, so let's take a look here. Max iterations. Let's increase this to say 10,000. Let's see how long that will take. And again, let's make the batch size a little bit bigger. Okay, let's say 100. Actually, let's do 1,000. Okay, just to for the purposes of time. Keep an eye on the time. We need to allow some time for questions. So we'll add. So we've got 200 records already. All right. So we're going to add another 1,000, and we're going to batch them in lots of 100. All right. Let me just run this. All right. There we go. And currently it's running. Okay, there you can see there. It's 7 seconds, 8 seconds. There we are. That didn't take too long, about 9 seconds to run that. That's fine. And then here on the Mongo side, if we refresh, that should tell us now that it is 1200. And indeed there are. Here we are. We've got 1200 records here. And if we shrink this down and take a look at the virtual machine, there you can see, because I'm too slow, it's happened whilst I was switching windows. So already it's gone up to 1200 here, okay, in terms of the data is fed through. And again, this is simply refreshing. So this is not using CDC in it by any means, but this is simply just creating some visualizations, doing a bit of analytics if you like. So the key thing, the bit of magic, if you like, the secret sauce is this, okay? Back in our SQL. So essentially, this piece of code is setting up that pipeline, okay? And we provide the information there. And as I said before, as long as that's up and running, this gives you that augmentation sort of scenario that we talked about. So if you want to keep your existing investment in Mongo for various reasons, commercial, skills, tools, whatever, you can move to Kai, of course, but perhaps you don't wish to do so initially. Maybe you just want to test this out and try it out and see how much better SingleStore might be for analytics. That's absolutely fine. So this will set it up. Okay, you'll get your data across into SingleStore, and then you can utilize it because it is both for OLTP and analytics. Okay, it does the OLAP as well. We have customers that have directly replaced Mongo. Others are using it in an augmentation mode to the point where majority of the operations are actually done by SingleStore. But again, for various commercial and business reasons, they still retain Mongo for some type of processing as well. Okay, so the article, okay, goes into the steps that you need. The GitHub repo has got the notebook, the SQL code there. The article itself has the 4 queries that I set up in Metabase. You're welcome to copy and paste those in. But what I simply wanted to show you is that setting up something like this is not very difficult. If you have your own source of data, say a live Kafka feed that's sending data to Mongo, absolutely fine. We can connect to Mongo. We can use the CDC to get the data across to SingleStore. Again, if you've got vast quantities of data to deal with, there will be some strategies. My colleagues, the SEs, will assist you in that process and help you because this will work at a reasonably sort of small to medium scale. But obviously, if you're dealing with huge quantities of data, hundreds of gigabytes, terabytes, or even more, then this strategy may not be the best approach. But initially getting the data in and then using the CDC perhaps as the means to continue the replication, that might be something to think about. Okay, that might work. Okay, so let's go back. And the other thing, quick points to note is that, I mean, the title of this presentation talks about CDC. It also mentions analytics, okay, which we've looked at. AI was the other kind of keyword, buzzword as well. It's very straightforward. Once the data are in SingleStore, if you want to integrate a variety of libraries, so you want to work with LLMs, for example, very easy to do. Yukti and I have covered this in many previous webinars. For example, one that we did not so long ago, we're just using LangChain, for example, as a means to connect to SingleStore and ask queries in natural language. And it will convert those to SQL behind the scenes, interrogate the database system, return the result. And that can even be, continue to happen whilst there is new data arriving. So if you've got a live feed, you might run a query to say, all right, show me how many rows are in table X. Now it might say, oh, there's 100,000. 10 minutes later, you might ask the same question again, or you might say 200,000. Okay, so, and of course, your queries themselves, in terms of the responses to the questions that you ask, will change as well because new data have arrived. That has implications as well in terms of what's actually returned. So that's very easy to do as well. Very straightforward. Okay, nothing particularly complex there. Okay, so just to summarize then, let's see if we can get this up and running. It's so Kai 100 to up to almost 1,000x faster analytics on JSON data. Okay, so it might be something to think about without any query changes or application changes. Compatibility is very high. It's not 100%. We're getting there. It takes a little bit of time, engineering challenge, because we are not privy to uh, MongoDB's code base, right? That is their commercial selling point. So we have to kind of just reverse engineer based upon how particular commands operate. SingleStore provides superior performance across a range of benchmarks. Augment MongoDB using CDC. That's a great way to start. Okay, again, gives you some confidence in the technology. Or at some point in time, you may wish to replace it entirely and have uh, SingleStore do everything. Using Kai for the Mongo operations, and then using the analytics capabilities that it has for the OLAP. And no separate cost license fees. Okay, so that's the key thing. So you saw that Kai is just an option that can be enabled. The CDC comes built in as well. There's nothing extra to pay there. You do need to run it on the standard tier at the moment as a minimum. I think currently it doesn't work on the free shared tier as far as I'm aware. If that changes, okay, we'll let you know. But that's, I think, the current scenario. Um, and if this interests you and you're thinking about possibly some migration projects or perhaps utilizing CDC or Kai or any of the technologies we've talked about today, I have colleagues in the solutions engineering team that can assist through that process, and we can work with you, understand your requirements. And again, if you have particularly large quantities of data, come up with strategies in terms of helping you get that data into SingleStore. So like I said before, the CDC is one option that could work. But if you're dealing with very, very large amounts of data, then perhaps using the pipelines that we have could be better in terms of parallel operations at speed, at scale. That might work. The standard, we are hiring. Okay, so if you're interested in joining us, singlestore.com/careers, please take a look at that page. And always the quote that I like to end with: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. The nice thing about the tools, technologies today, once you've set it up, okay, you've plugged in the credentials, username, password, details of the host, and so on. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I wrote the article some time ago. I ran it a little bit earlier today, and fortunately, everything worked, which is great. Nothing particularly complex there. All of these things are very, very straightforward, easy to understand. CDC has been around for a long time. Again, robust kind of technology that a lot of organizations use today, but very, very easy to use. Okay, so again, highlight this, and I'll stop there. So, Yukti, any further questions? So,
We actually have a lot of questions. First of all, thanks for the demo and thanks for hosting this webinar. We have some questions that have been waiting for you since I think some minutes.
yeah.
So there's another question from Chandan Kumar. They say that even the same CDC we can do using Mongo Atlas trigger also. Then why do we use single store on top of that?
That's a great question. So yes, I've heard of the trigger capability. I'd need to check that. That's something I'll have to follow up on. That's something I don't know off the top of my head. But great question. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
So there's another question like uh, from I'm not able to pronounce the name. It says Brendan, so in the middle. So they say that can I also migrate my data from old server of MongoDB and Oracle to use SingleStore?
Yes. So if there's as I said before, there's a variety of tools and techniques that you can use to get data out of existing systems. We've looked at one or two options today. There are other ways to do it as well. For example, some customers we work with, it's a little bit challenging because perhaps their data are quite complex. For example, may not be entirely amenable to some of the tools and technologies, and therefore we will build custom solutions with them. Um, There's plenty of free and open source software available as well. And the other thing worth noting is that we have this technology called Brightflow. We acquired the company. So I think the tool is called Flow, which is coming out. And Eric Hansen, if you remember, Yukti, Eric did a webinar on this not so long ago.
Yeah.
The recording again we can send with that. That is something that might be far more useful. So the CDC that you've seen today, there are kind of two variants of this. One is available for Mongo, one is available for MySQL. But with the acquisition of Flow, now that opens up the possibilities to have connectors for a much larger range of sources and syncs. Um, the sync obviously would be SingleStore, right? That's where you want to get your data. But now, beyond just Mongo and MySQL, there are lots of other SQL, non-SQL, NoSQL products that you should be able to connect to using something like Flow. Again, that's another option. Plenty of possibilities. Again, reach out to us, okay? And if we can discuss this with you. Have one of the my technical colleagues discuss your specific requirements, and we'll find the best fit and the best way to do this.
Right. So there's another question
Yeah.
from Chandan. They say that can I migrate my data from EBS to Mongo? And what is the downtime? What about the performance for Upsert?
Sorry,
And
which
can
technology was
they,
that? EB?
I'll just repeat the question,
Yeah.
data from EBS to Mongo. And what is the downtime? What about the performance for Upsert? And there's another follow-up question by them. How can I group my raw data here?
EBS, I'm not familiar with.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that.
If
The
you
acronym.
can, like, they can, like mention it in the chat. We can actually take up another question. There's a question from Travis. He says that, are you compatible with Cosmos DB?
Cosmos DB, right? That is from Microsoft, isn't it? And Microsoft, as far as I understand, I mean, originally that I think started off as something called Document DB, and then subsequently added additional capabilities as well. That is Mongo compatible as well. So if you have data, for example, in Cosmos DB, and you're using it like a Mongo replacement or a Mongo sort of compatible system, if it supports the majority of Mongo commands, for example, yes, we should be able to work with that as well. If it behaves like a MongoDB, we should be able to connect to it. That should be fine. But
Right.
again, there are always challenges in these environments and situations because keep in mind that the product your target system that you want compatibility with is Mongo, right? I don't think anyone has got a product that's 100% compatible. There is always some specific things that the vendor does, some secret sauce that they have, some commands that may not be fully implemented. So as I said before, I mean we've done a good job. I think we are over 92% compatible with MongoDB, but you can see we're not 100% there. So again, reach out to us, okay, and we'll understand the specifics. So if it is Cosmos DB you are using today, for example, we can work with you and figure out what's the best way to get
So
this.
there are two more questions regarding being basically it's around compliances. So what is the compliance story? This is a question from Peter and Travis. I can club this in one question. They
Yeah.
said that what is the compliance story for single store like PCI, FedRAMP? Travis asked the are you FedRAMP? So if you know anything about it, just let us know.
Yes, yes. So actually, there is I think somewhere if you just do a Google search, single store, FedRAMP compliance, for example, okay, you'll come up with data security, for example, and that shows uh, somewhere. So this is ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2, and so on. There's a whole bunch of things that here. This is yes. So for questions, it does actually provide a specific email address, compliance@singlestore.com. Okay, so just
Yeah.
drop an email, and someone more knowledgeable than me will be able to contact you. But we do have a lot of these. It's simply because the range of customers that we work with, and we work with, government level,
Mm.
and some highly regulated industries as well. Customers work in those, and therefore they need certain levels of security and so on. And so we do have various levels of. There is somewhere, I think, on our website a complete list of this. My apologies. That's a great question, by the way.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing actually. So,
yeah,
if
let me just
uh,
see if
you're done
any.
answering this question,
Yeah. So we'll let's have a look. Yeah, security. There's an entire security program, certifications. Um, there we are. I think this is slightly better. Encryption, audit logging, privacy, for example, GDPR. There's a whole bunch of things here. But yeah, so please, either the compliance at singlestore.com or privacy at singlestore.com, if that's something that's important to you, just drop an email to either of these and we can follow up with you. If list the specific certifications or the levels of compliance that you're looking for, and we'll get back to you and
you
confirm.
can CC us as well. We can, make sure it gets
Yes.
followed up.
Yes.
So yeah, Akmal, there is the follow for that EBS term. Some
Yes.
people have responded. Thanks a lot for that. They have said that it's called Elastic Block Store, and someone has actually even said that it's AWS Elastic Block Storage. So if that gives
Oh,
you more
okay, okay.
context, yeah, you can.
AWS.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
Sorry. Yeah. My brain. I have heard of it.
it's fine.
Again,
It's
off the
fine.
top of my head, I don't know the answer. But again, drop us an email, okay,
Okay,
and we can follow up.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So,
right. So
great
it
question.
seems
Yeah.
like we have crossed the time now. So thanks everyone for these amazing questions. We really appreciate it. And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
hope to see
Great,
you
great.
for the actually it was such an amazing session. We had so many amazing questions. So thanks for that. We really, really, really appreciate it. And we have amazing sessions that are coming up. So if you like today's session, if you may have time, feel free to tune in and we will be happy to host you. And if there's anything we can have a conversation if you want to uh,
Yeah.
engage with us more. We also have a Reddit channel. You can join that Reddit community. We even have a Discord forum. I can include those in the follow-up email. So thanks for tuning with us today. And this was amazing as a session. Thanks, Akmal, for organizing this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this was
great.
really fun
Yukti,
today.
please, I forgot all about our Discord channel. Thank you very much for
Oh,
mentioning
no,
that.
it's all
That's a
right.
great
It's
way. And
fine.
and that incident, if you want to interact with us, yeah, please go there and ask your questions there, because that would be an awesome way for you to register your question, and we'll be able to follow up with that in much
Yeah, we
easier.
even have a networking channel there. So if
Yeah.
you guys want
Great.
to talk to
Thank
each
you for
other
that.
as well, because it's a small community that actually regularly attends our webinars. So if you want to interact with each other as well, feel free to you can use that channel. So yeah, that's there. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you